Gharial is the world's oldest crocodilian species. It evolved long before the dinosaurs and once survived to cross major river systems of the Indian subcontinent. Today, this ancient creature occupies only 2% of its former range. For 3 decades, filmmakers Naresh and Rajesh Bedi have been tracking and filming these ancient reptiles. Through their path-breaking films, the Bedis gave a window into the world of this prehistoric creature. They were making slow but steady progress until the winter of 2007, when a mysterious and unprecedented mass die-off brought this giant reptile in peril. Are the Bedi brothers about to witness the first extinction of a crocodilian in human history? Or can they galvanize support to save this mighty creature from an impending crisis? Chambal, Gharial crisis. As children, the Bedi brothers spent their childhood surrounded by animals from the Indian wilderness. They inherited their love from their father, a botanist and a photographer, who painstakingly put together research on India's rich biodiversity. Captivated by tigers and elephants, they made this their life's work, and today are living legends in the world of natural filmmaking and conservation. But one animal that cast the greatest spell on them was India's iconic crocodile, the Ganges Gharial.
घड़ियाल की फिल्म हमारी पहली वाइल्ड लाइफ फिल्म थी। ना हमारे पास पैसा था, ना हमारे पास इक्विपमेंट था, और ना ही घड़ियाल के बारे में हम कुछ जानते थे, जो कि एक मुश्किल जोखिम भरा चैलेंज था।
In the 1980s, spending 3 long years in the wilderness, Bedis closely studied and photographed a visual encyclopedia on the Gharial behavior, previously unknown in the natural world. The film became India's first ever natural history film, which is till date referred to as the manual for studying Gharials by scientists and natural history filmmakers. The Chambal River Sanctuary in the plains of northern India is home to nearly half of the world's population of wild Gharial. In 1970s, when the first croc survey was conducted, there were less than 10 adult males surviving in the wild and only 200 surviving in the world. With habitat conservation and a government restocking program, by 2006, the total population had increased to over 1,000. But in December 2007, the recovering Gharials were dealt a devastating blow.
मुझे जब ये पहले सूचना मिली थी तो मैंने फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट को इन्फॉर्म किया था कि इस तरह से मुझे सूचना मिल रही है कि घड़ियाल कुछ मर रहे हैं और उनको रेत में दबाया जा रहा है। तब मैंने उनको खोद के निकाल के और इनको सामने ला के रख दिया कि आप जिस चीज को नकार रहे हैं वो हो रही है।
A wildlife scientist, Dr. Rajiv Chauhan, keeps a close tab on the river Chambal and its wild inhabitants. He cherishes the same passion for Gharials as the Bedi brothers and is curious to know what went wrong. It's obvious now that 10% of the vital population of Gharials has died in one extreme circumstance. Looking at the seriousness of the problem, the brothers will investigate the matter themselves. Their first task is to travel the length of the protected area over 400-kilometer long stretch of river, carefully noting the number and health of Gharials. The Gharial is perfectly adapted to its aquatic habitat. At 20 feet long and a ton in weight, it is the ultimate fish-eating crocodile and the apex river predator. But the gharials are extremely shy. The slightest movement can send them scurrying into the river. A preliminary search seems to indicate everything is fine. But as the brothers moved further upstream, they spot one more gharial near the riverbank. In such shallow waters, this female gharial is displaying unusual behavior. Despite the filmmakers being really close, unlike the other gharials, this one is struggling to move. It is evident now the gharial is too sick to even move.
ये मुश्किल से हमारे नाव से 10 फीट पे जानवर पड़ा है। ऐसा मुझे लगता है कि एक आध दिन का और मेहमान है। बहुत दुख की बात है जिस तरीके से ये असहाय जानवर नदी के किनारे पड़े हुए मिल रहे हैं।
A few days into their quest, Rajesh and Naresh have spotted 4 more dead gharials. A few others dying a slow, painful death. It is a devastating scene. Gharials live up to 40 to 60 years in the wild, and yet most of the gharials that have died here are in the prime of their lives.
लगातार हर दिन 2 या 3 ऐसे मर रहे सामने, और लग रहा है कि ये रोग पहले से ही है। वो अचानक कोई ऐसे एनवायरमेंटल फैक्टर कुछ उसको एग्रवेट किया हो।
More dead gharials are retrieved by the forest department, but efforts are needed for the ones that may still be suffering.
कोशिश जो हो रही है उसमें और तेजी लानी चाहिए, जिससे कि ये इतने रेयर जो घड़ियाल्स हैं वो कहीं इस पृथ्वी से हमेशा के लिए अब लुप्त ना हो जाएं।
अगर इसका कुछ हल यहाँ हिंदुस्तान में नहीं मिल रहा तो फॉरेन एक्सपर्ट्स को बुलाना चाहिए, फॉरेन मदद लेनी चाहिए। अगर कोई इंजर्ड एनिमल है उसको बाय एयर लिफ्ट करना चाहिए, उसको रेस्क्यू करना चाहिए, उस पर एक्सपेरिमेंट करना चाहिए टू फाइंड आउट व्हाट इज एक्चुअली हैपनिंग, क्या हो रहा है, क्यों मर रहे हैं ये।
The Chambal die-offs have reduced wild breeding numbers of gharials to below 200. Clearly, the Bedi brothers must act fast. It's time to mobilize opinion and galvanize international support to get policymakers and scientific experts to step in. A press conference is called by the Bedi brothers to mobilize support.
We have lost 96 animals, which is a huge number as you compare to 182 surviving population of breeding animals. So it's a very alarming situation. And can we let these gharials die every day? That's our concern.
An appeal is made stressing the need for urgent action from the central government to save gharials in crisis.
Proper investigation has to be done.
And overwhelming support from print and electronic media further strengthens the Bedi's message. News of the disaster has by now spread across the world. A major species is on the brink.
This is Network 18 and you are watching CNN IBN.
क्या ये चिंता की बात है कि घड़ियाल मर रहे हैं और सिर्फ 1400 घड़ियाल बचे?
रिवर सिस्टम का फूड चेन का रिप्रेजेंटेशन करता है। अगर कुछ हो रहा है उसको, that means something drastically wrong.
Fortunately, The policymakers too are quick to recognize the urgency. The Ministry of Environment together with Worldwide Fund for Nature or WWF forms a Gharial Crisis Management Group.
घड़ियाल की डेथ एक तरीके का क्राइसिस है और ये क्राइसिस मैनेजमेंट ग्रुप में हमने कई लोगों को जो हमारे एक्सपर्ट्स हैं सारे भारतवर्ष में और बाहर से वेटनेरियंस बुलाए और ये हमने कोऑर्डिनेट किया है जो WWF का एक रिवर वॉच प्रोग्राम है जिसके ऊपर हम घड़ियाल, डॉल्फिन और ऑटर्स और रिवर्स के ऊपर काम करते हैं.
To manage the crisis, emergency response teams are dispatched to the Chambal, and Bedi brothers join the team of Indian and international vets. No sooner has the team arrived at the mass graveyard, another dead Gharial has been washed ashore. It is a devastating scene, but there is no time for emotions as the scientists take over.
We have to look very, very carefully at every little bit and then hope that we find one piece after the other. It's like a criminal investigation.
There's no time to take this Gharial to a laboratory. The team of experts get to work with an impromptu autopsy right on the banks of the river. The autopsy is vital to discover what is killing the Gharials and causing the mass die-offs. This is an unusual sight, an attraction for the curious onlookers. The vets address each of the organs in turn. But the team is particularly interested in the joints.
Small vessel, yes. I take the
which show an unusual buildup of a chalky white substance.
Oh, look at that, even worse.
Yeah, this is...
You see this deposition that is chalky-like substance in the joints of the animal. Same substance we found on the heart earlier on.
And even organs like heart and kidneys have the same strange white deposits.
It's covering the surface of the heart.
We all come with a very limited knowledge of gharials, and we are extrapolating again and again. We have to find the cause before we can think of a remedy. At the moment, there's quite a spectrum of possibility, and we have various hypotheses.
From this specimen, the team gathers as many clues as they can for further analysis.
Today was quite fortuitous that we were able to get a somewhat fresh animal, which has been a limiting factor up until now. I think we have tissues from fairly well-preserved animals, and that's going to yield volumes of information in terms of the types of organ and tissue injuries.
As the intricate autopsy nears its end, the mystery unfolds.
The fat body was completely resolved, which means this gharial starved to death.
The most shocking discovery of all, one that has devastated the entire team. This dead Gharial with her eggs inside her.
No.
It's a helpless feeling. It really is.
I guess seeing the eggs, it brings home the message even more that this could have been an animal that for the next 30 years produces 50 babies a year. But this is true of this little girl here, it's true of all the others that have died. They could have gone on to become successful breeders. Yeah.
ये हमारा जो है ब्रीडिंग पॉपुलेशन ही अगर डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया तो हमारे लिए जो है आगे इस स्पीसीज को बचाना काफ़ी मुश्किल हो जाएगा।
The vets are weighing 3 possible causes of death: poisoning, parasites, and infection. Speculations are rife about the possibility of an infectious disease through a parasite. But the Bedi brothers, along with Rajiv, suspect that the Gharial's unique specializations make it equally vulnerable to extinction. As the team head home, are there any more clues along the stretch of the river that could provide more clues? In 1979, the government, along with its captive breeding program for gharials, formed the National Chambal Sanctuary to ensure a wild habitat where the animals could be released in the wild. Over the years, it is the conservation laws that has preserved the sanctity of this landscape.
चंबल डाकुओं के लिए मशहूर रहा है और उनका खतरा हमेशा ही मंडराता रहता है।
The ravines that border Chambal River were once a natural refuge for dacoits and bandits who ruled the area with the might of the gun. Inadvertently, it was their fear that left Chambal Sanctuary largely devoid of human pressures.
शायद यही वजह है कि लोग यहाँ नहीं आते और शायद यही वजह है कि घड़ियालों को यहाँ पे संरक्षण मिला हुआ है।
But in recent years, through an active policing program, Chambal's dacoits have all been gunned down or have surrendered their arms. The bandits may be long gone, but the Bedi brothers continue their quest to find out what's ailing the river predators. Some facts are clear. Although the Chambal River Sanctuary is 2,500 miles long, the affected gharials have all come from a single 25-mile stretch. It's also clear now that only certain size and age of animals are being affected. For instance, other animals of the river like the dolphins, the soft-shell turtles and the Indian mugger were unaffected by the crisis. Even the water birds that share the same food as the gharials are healthy. The Chambal may feel like a pristine wilderness, but somewhere in the river lurks the menace that's decimating its most precious inhabitant. Worse still, the mystery disease is not the only crisis affecting the species. For a while now, a major threat to most wild species in the river has been illegal fishing. Since this is a wildlife sanctuary under Indian wildlife laws, fishing is not permitted, but it happens nonetheless. Subsistence fishermen and the gharial have long competed for the same catch. And unregulated fishing and fine nets give the fishermen an unfair advantage over the gharials.
घड़ियाल यहाँ पर इलीगल फिशिंग में इंटेंगल्ड हो जाते हैं नेट में और उलझ के मर जाते हैं और फिशरमैन अपने जाल बचाने के लिए वो घड़ियाल का स्नाउट काट देते हैं।
इसका तो एक पैर नहीं है, पिछला वाला कटा हुआ पैर है।
With so many threats, the Bedis are still putting together pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. The two brothers suspect that something more specific to this species must be causing the mass Gharial die-offs in Chambal, making it more vulnerable than the other species in the river ecosystem. With the arrival of warmer weather, the Gharial's deaths appear to have stopped, and through study of their autopsy samples, the vets may have reached a breakthrough. They have discovered that white powder observed on Gharial's organs is crystallized uric acid.
On all this, I found one particular common thing is that uric acid deposition in Gharials.
The amount of uric acid in the blood is controlled by the kidneys, and when the levels are high, it indicates kidney failure.
If kidneys are just destroyed to a very, very large extent, you can develop gout rapidly.
When uric acid builds up in the joints, it is called gout, a debilitating condition that in a reptile can be deadly.
Gout, it can be very painful, and given enough time, it causes an amazing injury to the joints.
An animal with severe articular gout like this would definitely not walk normally and would not keep his balance as well as others, because to keep the balance in the water you require quite a number of muscular and joint movements. So that can definitely be explained by articular pain.
Gout is one of the most painful forms of arthritis. Gharials suffering from this can no longer come out of water to bask, and very often drown. This explains some of the observations made by the Bedi brothers during the mass die-offs. Filmed during the crisis, these images show the death throes of a Gharial crippled by agonizing gout. The winter's record low temperatures on the Chambal may also have played a part in this disaster. The fated night, the temperatures in the Chambal had dipped to -1 degree Celsius.
In a temperature that's too cool or unusually cold, it is possible that this may lead to gout. Because they metabolize it very slowly, the uric acid tend to precipitate at low temperatures, so it's possible that they would form faster.
The vets believe the die-offs was caused by gout brought on by a combination of cold weather and kidney failure, and that the kidney failure itself was caused by poisoning. But where did the poison come from?
We have some conclusive evidence, but what is the exact cause of death is to be ascertained.
The presence of a toxin has opened a Pandora's box for the babies. What is this toxin? And is it still lurking in the Chambal? The Chambal itself is one of India's healthiest waterways, and the sanctuary is known to be most pristine. Perhaps some answers lie further downstream, where the Chambal meets the Yamuna. The Yamuna may be considered sacred in Hindu mythology, but after flowing through the industrial heartlands of Delhi and Agra, it's one of the most polluted in the world. And the brothers suspect it is here the lethal toxin may have entered the river system and affected the fish species known as tilapia that the Gharials feed on. The toxic fish would have in turn poisoned the Gharials. As the brothers have pieced together the different pieces of the puzzle, their struggle to save the Gharial will continue until the toxin and its source can be identified and removed from the Chambal. Faced with a mass die-off, the species' future now rests on the captive breeding programs. But a captive population means very little with no secure wild habitat. The 30 years of struggle to save the Gharial is now losing the race against time. Right now, it's time to decide whether there is still a place for this magnificent creature in our modern world. A handful of people continue their struggle to monitor the river, to ensure these ancient creatures are safe, giving us the renewed hope that the queen of the Chambal, the Gharial, is preserved for posterity.